channel. Today we're going to talk about the 300-meter rifle for civil defense for the modern Minuteman. Now this topic is becoming more and more relevant, especially for our friends in Europe, where you can obtain the things on this table. And there are a number of countries in Europe where most of what is in view is legal and can be obtained in Europe. Now, real brief before we get into the topic at hand, I have approximately 40,000 rounds now through the AR series of rifles that I have put down range over the last decade. It's pretty easy to do when other people are buying your ammo, and it's pretty easy to do when ammunition was cheap in bulk at one point. Unfortunately, that is no longer the case, but I digress. The 300-meter AR15. What goes into a good quality 300-meter AR15? Let's jump into it. Number one, a PVS-14 Generation 3 night vision optic. What do you mean, Texas? Well, what I mean is your rifle is only as good as daytime in this configuration. That's it. Without night vision, you are effectively a paperweight in 2022. Get night vision, and for those of you in Europe, I know you're probably limited to Generation 2. At least get Gen 2, if that's all you can get. If you're here in the States though, do not waste your money on Gen 2. It's just not as good. This is one of those moments where I will say, no, it's literally not just as good. The other thing you need to do when setting up your 300-meter rifle that goes right in the same line of thinking, you need a good quality flash hider, which can include one of these $8 to $20 A2 bird cage flash hiders. We do not want a compensator when using night vision, because you can cause damage to your night vision, you can cause damage to the night vision of others in your party, and not only that, but it produces a massive muzzle flash signature when using one of the comps versus one of the flash hiders. Big takeaway from this video, get a flash hider. It can be the Surefire War comp, but I would only recommend going that direction if you are getting a Surefire suppressor. Otherwise, there's no reason to spend the money on that. Your money is better spent on extra ammo, extra magazines, and other accessories that we're about to jump into today. The next thing that you're going to need for your 300-meter rifle, quality backup iron sights. Now, my personal favorite is the Maytag, which you can see is very adjustable. It has windage and elevation adjustment, something not commonly found on many commercial offerings, many of which only have maybe 2 apertures on them for close-up and distance engagements. But I would encourage you to look at the Maytag option because it definitely gives you more features than the other offerings on most of my other rifles. But this is my favorite, especially when running a red dot. I really appreciate the Maytag for what it is. Now, moving along to the rail. Is your rail something that you need to maybe upgrade? Is it worth spending the money on? I would submit that it's not, unless it interferes with the operation of modern accessories in any way. Maybe it's just not as modular as it should be. But if you don't have your night vision squared away and you don't have a decent optic on your AR, then I would suggest that you spend your money in other places first. The next thing, a 2-point sling. I cannot harp on the utility of the 2-point sling enough. If you are running a single-point sling, you will quickly find out how much you hate it the first time that rifle smacks you in the nuts while you're making a transition to your pistol. You'll also realize that that single-point sling doesn't provide nearly the same level of retention as a 2-point sling. And should you actually need to carry this rifle for any extended period of time, you will again wonder why you did not get a 2-point sling. It's one of the reasons why I continue to stress here on this channel that you need to get training in the fundamentals and the more advanced topics. And you need to keep your skills sharp and take the stuff on this table out to the range and see what you actually hate about the things on this table. Because there might be certain accessories that I run that you don't like, or that you run that I don't like. A little bit of this is going to be preference oriented, but the big takeaway here is, as well, as we move into the red dot, you may find that your vision is not good enough to pick up a target at 300 meters anymore. Maybe it never was. So maybe we want to go with a red dot that has a wider field of view, maybe an EOTech, with a magnifier. And that might fill the role of the LPVO behind this. That might work really well. You might even be able to fill the role of the designated marksman in your squad by simply having a 3 or 5 power optic. This can include prism scopes, by the way, which have their own limitations. Red dots are a little more forgiving when it comes to eye relief. That's something that you need to be aware of and you need to train to, especially if you start running the more complicated optics. You need to get out there and actually use your equipment. Because you might find, you know what, my vision is so far gone, maybe I need the 1 to 6 power of an LPVO, which also means you need to dedicate more time to putting rounds downrange if you're going to go that route. This should suffice, though, for the majority of people. You should be able to engage targets at 300 meters with this red dot and with the sights as set up on this rifle. On the front sight, I have a Troy fixed front sight. I'm a big fan of Troy accessories, and I run them on most of my rifles, from the QD mounts to the actual backup iron sight systems. Now, the other thing I want to touch on too, if you are in the market right now and you are setting up a rifle for the first time, do not set up a defensive carbine with a highly milled and skeletonized upper and lower package. I'm seeing a lot of those on special right now. Do not buy those. This rifle is already super lightweight. There's no reason that you need to make it even more lightweight. And you'll notice that I'm not running a ton of accessories on here. That's not that I won't. That's not that I don't want to. For example, getting an IR laser is definitely something that I will pursue at some point, but it's a lower priority for this rifle. I want to get an RMR, a red dot, for the LPVO behind it before I spend the money on an IR laser. Something that I would submit is still practical, but with the proliferation of night vision, anytime you engage it, remember, it also identifies the position that you're in. So they have their pros and cons, and the discipline when using those, it's going to change. And the doctrine around them, in my opinion, will change radically with everything that's going on in Europe right now. Moving along. Other upgrades or things to look at. If you're building the 300-meter platform like you see it in front of you here, you want the accessories to be rock solid. You want to have a stable rifle from which to shoot. So, for example, the foregrip up front can help provide a little bit of that. It also provides some cable management tools here. We have an area where you can attach some of the pressure plates. You also have a sealed, watertight cap on the bottom for additional batteries. But this is also where things like a bipod might be of great use to you. I'm also a big fan of hand stops. I do run those on some of my rifles. You're just going to have to play around a little bit and see what you like, what gives you the most stable platform. But I'll tell you something right now that does not give you a stable platform, and that's these super cheap stocks. Just go ahead and throw those out. Spend the $30, get a Magpul stock on special this weekend. Go from there. It will provide a much more solid platform. It will give you more mounting options for your sling potentially, depending on which one you go with. But get away from the super wobbly, cheap stuff if possible. Really, really simple upgrades like that can go a really long way in increasing your accuracy, because you want to eliminate any movement when making some of those distance shots. That's something you really need to work on. And that's not something you can slack off on, especially when it comes to the fundamentals. You really have to work on this. Those long distance engagements are really dependent upon mastery of the fundamentals. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and check out the comment section for some additional knowledge nuggets that you can add to your toolbox. Again, thank you for watching. Make sure to find me on AltTech.
If you're not fit, you're gonna die. I'm gonna keep harping on it. Be fit.